purposes. India was a prosperous country in the past. You must have heard from your grandparents or in the stories that India was known as Golden Sparrow. Why? The huge wealth of India attracted invaders in the past to come to our country with the purpose to loot India. In fact, many invaders who came to India never went back and established their rule in the country. Apart from invaders, many trading companies were also interested to come to India and establish trade. For this purpose, they made conscious efforts and came to India. One such company was English East India Company. Today, we shall be doing second chapter of your history book, From Trade to Territory. The chapter will throw light on as to how the British East India Company, who came as traders, slowly became the masters of the country. Let's start with Aurangzeb, who was the last powerful Mughal ruler. Aurangzeb ruled over a very large part of the country. After his death in 1707, many Mughal governors and big zamindars began asserting their authority and establishing regional kingdoms. As powerful regional kingdoms emerged in various parts of India, Delhi could no longer function as an effective center. Did you know that the British originally came as a small trading company and were reluctant to acquire territories in India? How then did they become to be masters of a vast empire? Bahadur Shah Zafar was the last Mughal emperor. Now, for clarification, I would like to repeat that Aurangzeb was the last Mughal emperor in India. For Aurangzeb, there was no powerful Mughal ruler, but Mughal emperors continued to be symbolically important. In fact, when a massive rebellion against British rule broke out in 1857, Bahadur Shah Zafar, the Mughal emperor at the time, was seen as a natural leader. Once the revolt was put down by the company, Bahadur Shah Zafar was forced to leave the kingdom and his sons were shot dead by the company officials. This picture depicts the Bahadur Shah Zafar and his sons being arrested by Captain Hudson. In 1600, the East India Company acquired a charter from the ruler of England, Queen Elizabeth I, granting it the sole right to trade with the East. This meant that no other trading group in England could compete with the East India Company. With this charter, the company could venture across the oceans, looking for new lands from which it could buy goods at a cheap price and then carry them back to Europe to sell at higher prices. The company did not have to fear competition from other English trading companies. East India Company was a mercantile company. Mercantile means a business enterprise that makes profit primarily through trade, buying goods cheap and selling them at higher prices. But the royal charter, however, could not prevent other European powers from entering the eastern markets. So other European trading companies also came to India. These were the Dutch, the Portuguese and the French. The first trading company to come in India was Portuguese Trading Company. In fact, it was Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese explorer who had discovered the sea route to India in 1498. All the trading companies were interested to buy same things from India. The fine qualities of cotton and silk produced in India had a big market in Europe. Pepper, cloves, cardamom and cinnamon too were in great demand. The trading companies used to buy these products from India and sell them in European markets, earning huge profits. Competition amongst the European companies increased and this pushed up the prices at which these goods could be purchased, which reduced the profits of the trading companies. The only way the trading companies could flourish was by eliminating rival competitors. The urge to secure markets therefore led to fierce battles between the trading companies. Through the 17th and 18th centuries, they regularly sank each other's ships, blockaded routes, and prevented rival ships from moving with supplies of goods. Trade was carried on with arms and trading posts were protected through fortification. The efforts of the companies to fortify settlements and carry on profitable trade also led to intense conflict with local rulers. The East India Company began its trade in Bengal and the first English factory was set up on the banks of the river Hooghly in 1651. This was the base from which the company's traders operated. As trade expanded, the company persuaded merchants and traders to come and settle near the factory. By 1696, the company began building a fort around the settlement. Later, it bribed Mughal officials into giving the company zamindari rights over 3 villages. One of these was Kalikata, which later grew into the city of Kolkata as it is known today. Company also persuaded the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman granting the company the right to trade duty-free. Farman, it was a royal edict, a royal order. Aurangzeb's farman had granted only the company the right to trade duty-free. But officials of the company who were carrying on private trade on the side were expected to pay duty. This annoyed them and they refused to pay, which caused enormous loss of revenue to Bengal. The Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, also opposed it. How trade led to battles. Through the early 18th century, the conflict between the company and the Nawabs of Bengal intensified. After the death of Aurangzeb, the Bengal Nawabs asserted their power and autonomy. as other regional powers were doing at that time. Here I would like to name three powerful rulers of Bengal: Murshid Quli Khan, Alivardi Khan and Sirajuddaula. Each one of them was a strong ruler and refused to grant the company concessions. They also demanded large tributes for the company's right to trade and denied it any right to mint coins. They stopped the company from extending its fortifications, accusing the company of defeat. Accusing the company of deceit, they claimed that the company was depriving the Bengal government of huge amounts of revenue and undermining the authority of the Nawab. The conflicts between the Nawab of Bengal and East India Company led to confrontations, and finally it resulted in the famous Battle of Plassey. The Battle of Plassey. After the death of Alivardi Khan in 1756, Sirajuddaula became the Nawab of Bengal. The company was worried about his power and wanted a puppet ruler who would willingly give trade concessions and other privileges. After becoming Nawab, Sirajuddaula asked the company to stop meddling in political affairs of his dominion, stop fortification, and pay the revenues. When the company officials refused to do so, the Nawab marched with 30,000 soldiers to the English factory at Qasim Bazar, captured the company officials, locked the warehouse, disarmed all Englishmen and blocked the English ships. Then he marched to Calcutta to establish control over the company's fort over there. On hearing the news of the fall of Calcutta, company officials in Madras sent forces under the command of Robert Clive. And finally, in 1757, Robert Clive led the company's army against Sirajuddaula at Plassey. Sirajuddaula lost the Battle of Plassey. One of the main reasons for the defeat of the Nawab was Mir Jafar. He was the commander of Sirajuddaula and never fought the battle because Clive had managed to secure his support by promising him to make him Nawab of Bengal after crushing Sirajuddaula. Did you know how Plassey got its name? Plassey is an anglicized pronunciation of Palashi, and the place derived its name from the Palash tree, known for its beautiful red flowers that yield gulal. The powder is used in the festival of Holi. Thus, the Battle of Plassey was important in history because it was the first major victory of company in India. After the defeat at Plassey, Sirajuddaula was assassinated and Mir Jafar was made the Nawab of Bengal. But soon the company discovered that it is difficult to expand trade in India through the puppet Nawabs, as even the puppet Nawabs were not always as helpful as the company wanted them to be. After all, the Nawabs also had to maintain a basic appearance of dignity and sovereignty if they wanted respect from the people. When Mir Jafar protested against the company after becoming Nawab, Mir Qasim also started complaining against the company. As a result, again the situation between Nawab and company became tense, and as a result, Battle of Buxar was fought in 1764. In this battle, Mir Qasim was defeated and driven out of Bengal, and Mir Jafar was reinstalled the Nawab of Bengal. The Nawab had to pay rupees 5 lakh every month to the company, but the company wanted more money to finance its wars and meet the demands of trade and other expenses. It wanted more territories and more revenue. Mir Jafar died in 1765, and by that time, the mood of the company had changed. Having failed to work with puppet Nawabs, Clive declared, "We must indeed become Nawabs ourselves." Finally, in 1765, the Mughal emperor appointed the company as the Diwan of the provinces of Bengal. The Diwani allowed the company to use the vast revenue resources of Bengal, and this solved a major problem that the company had earlier faced. Now, the outflow of gold from Britain slowed after the Battle of Plassey, and it entirely stopped after the assumption of Diwani. Why? Because earlier, company had to buy most of the goods in India with gold and silver imported from Britain, because at this time Britain had no goods to sell in India. But now, after getting Diwani, the revenues could be used to purchase cotton and silk textiles in India, maintain company troops, and meet the cost of building the company fort and offices at Calcutta. Also, after getting Diwani, the company acquired more power and authority. Each company servant began to have visions of living like Nawabs. After the Battle of Plassey, the actual Nawabs of Bengal were forced to give land and vast sums of money as personal gifts to the company officials. Robert Clive himself amassed a fortune in India. He had come to Madras from England in 1743 at the age of 18, and when in 1767 he left India, he had amassed huge wealth worth 4,01,102 pounds. Interestingly, he himself was appointed Governor of Bengal in 1764 and was asked to remove corruption in company administration, but later he himself was cross-examined in 1772 by the British Parliament, which was suspicious of his vast wealth. What do you think? Is it appropriate to amass wealth by unfair means? However, not all company officials made money like Clive. Many of them died an early death in India due to disease and war, and were not corrupt and dishonest. But more or less, the uppermost desire of most of the officials was to earn enough in India, return to Britain, and lead a comfortable life. The expansion of the company's rule. From 1757 to 1857, the company rarely launched a directly military attack on an unknown territory. Instead, the company used a variety of political, economic, and diplomatic methods to extend its influence before annexing an Indian kingdom. After the Battle of Buxar in 1764, the company appointed residents in Indian states. Residents were political or commercial agents, and their job was to serve and further the interests of the company. Now, through the residents, the company officials began interfering in the internal affairs of Indian states, like who was to be the successor to the throne and who was to be appointed in administrative posts, etc. In the process of annexation of states, sometimes the company forced the states into subsidiary alliance. According to the terms of subsidiary alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They were to be protected by the company, but had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purposes of this protection. According to the terms of subsidiary alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They were to be protected by the company, but had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of protection. Now, if the Indian rulers failed to make the payment, then part of their territory was taken away as penalty. For example, when Richard Wellesley was Governor General from 1798 to 1805, the Nawab of Awadh was forced to give over half of his territory to the company in 1801 as he failed to pay for the subsidiary forces. Hyderabad was also forced to give territories on similar grounds. Thus, subsidiary alliance was forced on the states, and on the pretext of protecting the kingdoms, the company was actually annexing the states. Some questions are being shown on your TV screen. We have to select the correct option from the given options and answer the questions. Now let's try to answer. Why did trading companies come to India? For trade, to visit Kolkata, to establish their rule in India, to conquer India. The right answer is the trading companies came to India for trade. Question number 2 is, the first trading company to visit India was East India Company, French Company, Dutch Company, Portuguese Company. The right answer is Portuguese Company. Question number